All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of my quest to make understanding AWD 1000 web development technologies and AWD 1111 database-driven website development easier to understand, I have been starting to go over creating a series of video presentations based on some of the ebooks by Mr. Flavio Copes. And so far I've gone through all of his HTML ebook, and now I'm about a third of the way through the ebook for CSS. All right, so the next thing to talk about is units, and the thing to realize with units is their units are either exact units or they're relative units. All right, so it says the most widely used measurement unit is pixels, and maybe it is, but I'd recommend using it infrequently. All right. Percentages are great because percentages, as it says, let you specify values that the parent can correspond to. All right. So basically it's percentage based on the size of what you're looking at. Now let's look at these. These are actual units here, centimeters, millimeters, etc. I don't ever use those, ever. They're exact sizes regardless of whether you're using a phone. Points I might use, but I don't use very often. More and more I use M's and rems, right? Especially rems, because what rems do is they base it on the root size of the document, which by default is 16 pixels unless you change it. So if I set something else to 2rem, it's now 32 pixels. All right. But it uses, as it says, the root element font size. Now, some people don't like rems. They use ems. Ems, rather than being based on the font size of the root element or HTML element, they base it on the font size of the current parent element. Nothing wrong with it. It's just what you get used to using. All right. Viewport units. VW is viewport width. All right. And VH is viewport height. So let's take a look at these. So let's grab this. We'll do both of them, but we'll do them one at a time. So I'm saying here I want the body, the width, to be 50 VW. What did that do? Well, about the only way we're going to be able to tell is to give our whole body a different background color so that it stands out. All right. Now, it doesn't really look right now as though it did much of anything. So let's take a look. Let's try height. Maybe I'm setting that incorrectly. Let's see if they show it here. Well, it might not be this. It might be VW here. Doesn't like that either. So when I'm a little stumped, I go out to, and I'm going to put in here W3 schools, viewport width. And it's going to give me an example. Responsive, web design viewport, CSS units, setting the viewport. I just want the viewport width. Let's just go ahead and try the first one here. Well, I don't like any of those, so. what I've always been taught is that when you are working with this stuff, let's just look at the height right now. Oops. That if I tell this to take up 50, okay, and I save and I come in here, I'm a little confused. I thought this was only going to take up 50% of the screen size, and it's not. So let's take a look at what it says here. VW is viewport width. Imagine that the screen is chunked up into 100 different pieces. Each one of those, so 50 VW means use 50% of the width. VH with 50 means use 50% of the height. All right. You can also set it up to so that it's got a minimum and a maximum. All right. Now this fractional units, this won't make much sense now, but it'll make more sense later when we talk about CSS grid. The URL here can be used to load a resource. So for instance, and this is going to look terrible, but I'm going to use it anyway. So no, maybe it won't look terrible, but we'll look. Let's take a quick look. I'm going to come in here and where I've got that div. I don't have a div in here right now. So this my dog is. These two paragraphs, I'm going to put them in a div. Like that. I'm going to move all that over. And I'm going to move all that over. And then I'm going to end my div. Okay, this does not look any different. I haven't put anything in here yet. Looks still the same. All right, but I'm going to come in here now, and in my body here, let me get rid of all this paragraph and the coloring and all the other stuff. All right, so the example that they give here, I'm going to use their example. Background image URL, and I'm going to say here, images, because we moved that, slash, I thought we did. Let's see, background image URL, slash, images, slash, puppy. All right, what did that do? Well, notice there's the background for that div now, the pictures of the puppy. All right, and it's not much in there. And it's repeating. So for instance, if I came in there and said no repeat, it's not in there at all. Might be no hyphen repeat. Still didn't like it. But there are things that you can set up with a background image. Okay, and don't worry about it right now. It's not really that, and truly is not that big of a thing. In fact, part of the reason, let's see, this was not in here, and in here. I don't know now if that'll work or not. Nope, still isn't working. Well, no, I totally hosed it. I think that URL has got to go in here. Like that. That should work. Like that. So that's back. Now, will it take the no repeat? I thought it went right here, and I thought it was no repeat, but it didn't seem to like it right there. It's not. So that, you can set it. We're going to look at images in just a bit. You'll see more of it then. All right. But it is repeating by default. as many times as there is room. So calc, as it says, allows you to perform basic mathematical operations. So the reason that this can become important is if you want to be able to take a look at the screen size and do things based on the screen size, you can. All right, so setting width, etc. Backgrounds I've started to show you. So we've already looked at background color. We've now looked at the background image. And as it says, there's other things that you can add in here as well. See, they did show it in here, and it looks like it worked just fine. Now that's background, not a background image. Huh. So can we do that and then say no repeat? There you go. All right, and what you'll notice is it's doing this based on what I have in that div, right? So if I come back in here and I grab this, now I put it in there 4 times, I can see a lot more. All right, but it's only giving me this with the size of the image, and that's why some of this is hanging out. All right. Kind of silly examples that we're looking at here. Comments we've already looked at. They start inside of a CSS file with /star and with // A CSS variable, as they mentioned right there, is defined with a special syntax. You prepend 2 dashes to a name. All right. And don't worry about it. We're going to, as it says, we're going to look at a lot more of this later. Why would you do this? Because if you do this, if I set up a primary color like this, I can use it then anywhere in here. And what's really nice about this is if at a later time the primary color changes, so let's say that I'm working for a company and they decide to change their colors, I only have to change it in one area, which is very nice. I don't know if you can hear that behind me or not, but it's pouring outside. Okay. Interacting with a CSS variable using JavaScript. Hit on that more later. All right. If a variable is assigned to a property which does not accept the variable value, it's considered invalid. The good news is typically it doesn't cause anything bad to happen. It just totally ignores it. All right. Browser support for CSS variables is good. Variables themselves, when you create them, are case sensitive. So a little w is different than a big W, for example. Math we've already talked about. All right, I'm going to end this session early because I just saw a crack of lightning and I am plugged in and I don't want to lose power. So I'm going to stop it right now.